Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly for pricing. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Now, the basic 43.5mm Seamaster Planet Ocean without the GMT, launched as a master chronometer at Bezel World 2016, but the model you see here with the orange ceramic bezel, steel case, 43.5mm size, and white ceramic dial, that launched in 2019. In a lot of ways, this was a breakthrough watch, but we'll talk about why in a moment. Let's talk about the basic size. It used to be that 43.5 was a GMT in the Planet Ocean line. As of 2016, you can now get it as a standard three-hand date diver. The watch is also fairly thick, though. It's 16.2 millimeters, but it's short across the wrist at 49.1, so it wears well on a smaller wrist, and it has a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throwing it on the wrist, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. You get a good sense of the fit. It's not hugely broad, and you can really see that right here. So while it is thick and it's not going to fit underneath a dress cuff or a super tight sleeve, this is a watch that you can wear on a smaller wrist, in my estimation, as small as 15 centimeters in circumference. It's substantial too. Although all in steel, it almost feels precious metal because it is so solidly built. The bracelet has pivoted end link, and this is an important feature on the more recent redesigns of Omega Seamaster families because it means there's no flare beyond the lug, so the lug-to-lug distance is true here, as opposed to a solid end link bracelet, which typically does something like this on both sides and winds up wearing bigger. Satin finish, you can see all satin finish for these links, removable links fixed in place by screws, and you can see that this is a rather impressive clasp. First, because you have 9.6 millimeters of incremental adjustment, so you have a fine-tuning sizer, but then you also have a fold-out dive extension. Combine the two, you can easily extend over a wetsuit or a dry suit or even a thick winter coat or sweater, and of course you have the slider for fine-tuning the fit. Taking a look at the case, lyre-style lugs, you've heard it a million times. They bevel inward and they bevel outward. We've known this form on Seamasters and Speedmasters since the early 1960s. A polished bevel that diminishes somewhat at the mid-case, a thin case band with satin finish, and then you can see that there is a little bit of a countersink for the crown, though not a ton. It's a sheer guard structure rather than a traditional shouldered crown guard. We have the Helium escape valve, nicely detailed. You can see the outer face is media blasted, and then the H and the E have been polished and relieved. This is here in case you are a saturation diver. You open it before dive, and any helium that manages to intrude within the watch will exit through the Helium escape valve when internal pressure exceeds external by 2 to 3 bar, and that prevents the helium from blowing out the sapphire or the caseback sapphire or the crown seals. Now, the timepiece is 600 meters water resistant, and it is a diver, a true ISO 6425 style diver. So 120 click bezel. You can hear it, it feels good, it sounds good, and you can locate it precisely. You'll note that by lining it up with the broad arrow minute hand, I now have an impromptu 0 to 60 minute timer that's a heck of a lot easier to read than a chronograph minutes register and doesn't involve the long-term service costs that come with owning a chronograph. Now, the bezel here is orange and ceramic, and there was a time back in 2013 when a ceramic orange bezel on a Planet Ocean would have cost you a fortune in a platinum dive watch. After that, the orange inserts were always rubber, but for 2019 on this model, the Planet Ocean gets a full orange ceramic insert, so it has that scratch-resistant quality, and it's not just a rubber insert in orange. The dial is also made of ceramic. You can see zirconium oxide, giving it that glossy gleam luster and long-term resistance to tarnish and oxidation that you associate with enamel, but it does not entail the cost or fragility of enamel dials. All applique indices, tri-Arabic numerals, and Omega logo. The timepiece featuring broad arrow minute and hour hands to remind you of older, circa 1950s and 60s Seamasters. So that's a little window to the past, even though this is not one of the vintage-inspired families of Seamaster. Now, you can see there is a hacking or stop seconds function, as well as a intermediate position where you can change the hour independently, and note that I can drive the date forward or backwards. The watch is still ticking. It's keeping time. I'm not changing the seconds hand or the minute hand. So if I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling east or west, I get the ability to do so with this time zone feature. Turn the watch over, and you can see, despite 600 meters of water resistance, we get a display case back. Pop open the clasp, take a better look at this. This is the Master Chronometer caliber 8900. METAS, or the Master Chronometer standard, developed by Swatch in conjunction with the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology, is, yes, just like the ISO 3159, a chronometer style test that uses the COSC ISO standards, but it goes beyond that, as the COSC only tests the movement, and it only tests it in 5 positions. This is tested in 6 positions as a fully assembled watch, so it also includes tests of shock resistance, anti-magnetism, winding efficiency, power reserve, chronometry, yes, but all of the qualities that a watch should have, including water resistance, are tested as part of the Master Chronometer certification. So it's a chronometer, but it's more. It also beats away at 25,200 vibrations per hour, which is a frequency Swatch Group has established for its silicon hairspring watches. And yes, it has an amagnetic silicon hairspring. It's also shock tolerant thanks to a full balance bridge and a free sprung index. And the twin mainspring barrels, which provide a 60-hour power reserve, also release torque more evenly than a large single barrel, so these don't tend to run fast when fully wound, and they don't lose a ton of balance amplitude after, for example, 24 hours, the way a single barrel movement like a Rolex 3235 will. It's also a good looking movement, as you can see, with arabesque Cote de Genève across the bridges, and then lovely blackened screws with engine turning on the base plate and robust satination on features like the wheels and the stud holder. A truly good looking 39 jewel movement with all of the modern technology, including the tri-level coaxial escapement, developed by Omega through the pioneering work of independent watchmaker George Daniels. He created it in 1974, Omega industrialized it in 1999, and today the tri-level version, which you'll find in this caliber 8900, lives up to the billing. Precise, improving intervals between service, and of course, very stable over the long term. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we're back with the Planet Ocean. Note this model, unlike previous Planet Oceans, has a fully loomed bezel, and that there is a different colored green bezel pearl to more easily judge it at a glance against the green minute hand.